Ricky Gervais, 7 years since your last stand-up special. What brought you back?
I always sort of considered stand-up the sort of second and third job I did. But doing Humanity changed all that. Now I think it's my main job. I feel that I'm a stand-up comedian who does the odd bit of TV and film now. I do love the fact that outside my own morality, I can say what I want, you know. And this particular show was more about, you know, freedom of speech and offence culture and people misunderstanding jokes and you know the difference between the target of the joke and the subject of a joke, and it was all about, you know, that sort of thing that's you know, been getting worse and worse, I think. And it was also, I think the good thing is that I left it 7 years because you know, your first special is your whole life and then you've got a year to do the next one. So, and I think the world has changed more in this past 7 years than any other 7 years of my life. So it all came together to make it my favourite show, I think my favourite tour and my favourite special. I think that is because I think it's my best, but that's so subjective and that's not for me to say. But I do think it's my best. But I can certainly say objectively that no one can argue with, it is my favourite. What makes it your favourite? I don't know, lots of things. I approached it differently. My first 4 tours, I sort of wrote like a writer and then practiced it like an actor. And this, I just walked out on stage with a few things written on the back of my hand, and I did more warm-ups. It was much more of an evolution. It was much you know, that's the other great thing about stand-up, and the difference between stand-up and writing TV and movies is when you write a TV show or a movie, you do your best guess, you try your hardest, and then you put it out there, and that's it. Whereas with stand-up, you can evolve it every night. You know, they choose your best bits, so it becomes, you know, evolution by natural selection. The audience makes it better every night. That you put the bits in, they laugh at, and so soon you've got the perfect hour that works everywhere because people are the same. Basically, it's less like an art form and more like a science because it either works or it doesn't, and you know it's worked or not. If they laugh, it worked. You know, can't wait to do the next one. A lot's changed in the past 7 years. The role of comedy now. How do you approach sort of the state of politics? I try and keep politics out of comedy, not because I think I'll lose half the audience. That's never worried me. I think if you're relying on the audience giving you a round of applause because they agree with you, that loses something comedically. That's just rallying, and I don't like it from either side. I don't like that preachy, we're right, aren't we? I get round to politics with a small p implicitly. I don't do Trump bashing and stuff like that. In my private life, I am more political than I was never interested in politics, but I think everyone is now. I can't wait for him to get up and tweet, you know, on a personal level, you know. But I do try and keep it out of comedy. What's your favorite Trump tweet? You know what? This is what's impossible. Any one of his tweets 10 years ago would be mad. It would make the front pages. It would be the maddest thing that had happened that year. But he's done 1,000. So there's the paradigm shift. Do you know what I mean? I don't know where to start. The fact that he's tweeting about shows that have annoyed him or having a go at a citizen that's I mean, see, you've made me get political, but I'm not getting political because I don't think it's anything to do with his politics. I don't think it's anything to. I don't think he's political. I think he's just a crazy man baby narcissist who's a troll who somehow found himself in the White House. It's like it's a bad 80s movie. It's like two billionaires made a bet in a country club. They said, I bet I can make the biggest buffoon in the world. The president goes, you're on, George. Shall we say $1 billion? It's like it's the worst 80s movie.
So, Ricky, what of the Humanity Stand-Up special was maybe the bit that saw the most evolution, or was the hardest bit for you to work through and just get right?
Well, because I use sort of irony quite a lot, that can confuse people. So I'm dealing with very contentious issues. And so you want people to know clearly what, the target is from the subject, but you don't want to make it so anodyne and so safe that everyone gets it, because you'll lose the bite, you'll lose the satire, you'll lose the irony. It's that balance when you're dealing with those very emotive, the most emotive and contentious issues in the world at the moment. That's what I go for, and I do it for a reason, because I don't want comedy to be safe and anodyne and all cozy. I want to take people through a scary forest, and I want them to come out the other side in the sunlight, and they go, oh, okay, that was good. It's like we don't want to go to the gym. But when we go to the gym, we feel good about ourselves. So I do want them to have a little bit of a workout. I do want their conscience to go through a little bit of trauma. Things remain taboo when we don't talk about them. And I think anything that adds to the discussion, even if people are angry about it, when someone says, I'm offended, I want to go, well, why? And sometimes they say, well, you shouldn't talk about that. And I go, but why? What? We're talking about it now. Why should you talk about it? And one of the big central things in humanity is that people get offended when they mistake the subject of a joke with the target. There's no subject you shouldn't joke about. It depends what the joke is.
What's the danger in comedy, do you think, if there are things people can't joke about?
It's the end of free speech. It's a slippery slope. I have rules. I think there are rules. And I'd say that political correctness started off as a good thing, in a certain sense, that we don't want to alienate people. We don't want people to be uncomfortable for things they can't help. That was why, in England, political correctness came and kicked out the old guard. It kicked out the sort of outspoken racist comics, sexist comics, But then it gets to the point where people do well, if I can't talk about that, then you can't talk about. So it gets very, very childish. And let's not forget, political correctness isn't the same as actual correctness. There are some things that I think people muddy the waters because they try and close down an argument. Personally, a big taboo, less now, obviously, but a big taboo for me growing up was you should never make jokes about religion or joke about. And I was thinking, well, yeah, you should. It's an idea. It's not a person. You can ridicule ideas. They don't have human rights. But people give ideas human rights to close you down. And so that's the bad side of political correctness. People think you can't joke about it. Well, you can. It depends what the joke is. So that's the tricky bit for me, so everyone understands what I'm doing. And the whole show, but luckily, as a comedian, you can make a show about anything. So I made a bit of a show about the difficulty of being a comedian and joking about the things I wanted to joke about. I think comedy at its best is getting things off your chest, as long as you're the butt of the joke too. Because I deal with honesty and truth, I always want to be honest and true and all that. traditionally as a stand-up, we're meant to be a loser. We're meant to be a court jester, an idiot, punching up, right? So we have to have low status. You know what I mean? I can't go out there and pretend that I've had a bad day because I couldn't pay the rent, or, you know? So I'm honest about that. So I keep my lower status in two ways. I invite them in. I think, what, you think it's brilliant being rich and famous? Well, this is what happened to me on my private jet, right? So I do that, and I play the sort of, I you know, exploit that spoil privilege. You know, they know I'm joking, which is good. So I sort of embrace that. And the other way I keep my low status is I talk about things where that money doesn't help, and that they're better off than me. They're younger than me. I'm going to die first. I'm fat. I'm going bald. I feel ill. You know, I'm a slut. So that's how I keep my lower status. You can't be above the audience. Even if you're pretending to be, ironically, you can tease them. But if the audience really think you're better than them, you're done. You're finished. You're finished.
Yeah, and you talked there a bit about truth and sort of how important that is and how important it's challenging and things like that. And in the special, you've got a bit where you talk about how being popular is more important these days than sort of being right or disagreeing with someone. Who's your favorite person to disagree with?
I mean, that persona is a persona. I really want peace and quiet. I don't want any conflict. I try and rule it out of my life. Yeah, it's and again that's difficult for a comedian because I haven't got any. You know, there isn't a struggle. I've never really had that struggle. So you have to create it. So what I go for is that I'm spoiled and lucky and ungrateful and grumpy. You know, so you sort of have to create your own demons when you haven't really got any. But again, it does come down to being honest. I'd never make up a story of hardship.
You'll say, I shouldn't have said anything. I shouldn't have said anything, but I did. And then at the end, you talk about how with from growing up and your brother and stuff, that you sort of taken from that you just need to find the funny in things. You just need to make the joke, and sort of, even though there's all these instances where you probably shouldn't have said anything, finding that laugh, finding that humor is more important than leaving something unsaid.
I think so. I think it's one of the most, it was, you know, even growing up, my friends, the first thing that you're attracted to in a mate is that they're funny. For being funny. I don't feel uncomfortable about any difference. Anyone who's different, I don't feel, except if they haven't got a sense of humor. That scares me. To be locked in a room with someone without a sense of humor, that's really scary, you know. Growing up, it was about having a laugh. You know, I do think you've got to go to your grave having laughed every day. You know, that's what it's all about. I never even considered this as a job. I'd be doing this anyway. Everyone I knew growing up was making jokes and being funny. In fact, the funniest person everyone knows is their friend. It's not a professional comedian. It's their mate or their dad or their granddad or their uncle or the next door neighbor, because it's about real life.
People without a sense of humor, I think, like, as someone who, like, I myself go to church, but I find that the people who can't take a joke about that sort of thing, it shows some insecurity in their faith, that they can't have a laugh at it. I think,
no, it's true. You know, I imagine half my audience were religious, but they know I wasn't laughing at them. I was laughing at a particular person's attitude, you know. I've always said, you know, a bad person is a bad person, and no God has ever changed that. There's good Christians and bad Christians, and there's good atheists and bad atheists. It has nothing to do with whether you're a good person. It's just a personal thing. And I've also said that I've always made the distinction between I have no problem with spirituality at all, and I have no problem with religion until it starts saying, and God told me that you're a bad person. You know, it's when it's used as a stick to beat people with. You know. And also when I have a go at religious people, I know that that's a 1% example. You know, I don't go for general people who happen to believe in God. I go for a guy who hopes on Twitter that I'll be raped by Satan. You know, I know that's an extreme. I know 99% of Christians or they don't wish that upon atheists. But you know,
look, at the end of the day, if God's real, I think he can take a few jokes from you. I think he's big enough.
That's exactly, but that's exactly the point, isn't it? And I say this to, you know, fundamentalists who try and kill people because of blasphemy. I go, if God's all powerful, he can take care of that stuff himself.
Yeah.
You don't need to help out an all powerful God. You know?
Yeah. I think some Christians can have thinner skins than God probably does. Anyway, Ricky, you've been nominated for 24 Emmys. You've only won 2 of them. What's the one that you've lost that you would have most liked to win?
Because I've won for what have I won for? I've won for most of my. Oh, there you go. Look.
Yeah, let's see him.
There's the globes over there.
Lovely.
Most of the awards, I think most of the awards are either for show, like writing and directing, or acting. And I've never won a major award for a stand-up special. So I would have loved to have won one for that. So yeah, but
well,
you know what?
Yeah.
It's nice to be nominated, particularly the Emmys, because it's by your peers. So that's lovely. But it's crazy. It's crazy to take it too seriously, and I never have. In fact, I pretend to take it seriously when I win to annoy people. I'd like to win one for stand-up.
You're eligible this year for your stand-up special, so who knows what's going to happen?
There's so many, though.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, basically Netflix own stand-up comedy now.
Yes,
I've got tough competition. I think Dave Chappelle could be nominated 4 times. Yeah. He's got put out 4 specials in this.
That's his strategy to win. He's like, if I can get all the nominations, then I'll win it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be good. What I'd like is that he to be nominated 4 times, but I win it with my 1 nomination.
That's probably a good path for you because the big David Chappelle fans won't know which special to vote for. He'd
split the vote, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he'd split the vote.
Split his own vote. It's a perfect plan.
That's Australia. You need to be campaigning for Dave Chappelle to get all of
them. So I reckon it'd be Dave Chappelle, a couple, Chris Rock. Who else has had one?
I'm trying to remember.
Oh, someone else just dropped one. Was it Mulaney just dropped? Was it? I don't know him. But
maybe did. Yeah.
He's the latest, isn't he? I'm not. I don't. Is he on SNL?
He wrote for SNL at some point.
Right.
Yeah. No,
I haven't seen him. I haven't seen his, but I think I've heard good things. So I shouldn't be mentioning all the other.
Yeah. Oh, what are you doing? You're not into politics enough, Ricky. The good politicians just say my opponent. They don't use their name. My opponent says this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love comedy. I love watching other comedy. I never, when I see another comedian get grief, or I've never got that Schadenfreude. I never weigh in. Even comedians I don't rate, I'd still defend them. Do you know what I mean? If someone was saying to me, "Oh, he's rubbish," I'd go, "Well, he's not rubbish. You just don't like him." Because I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And people take comedy so seriously. You think religion is, people are angry if they don't like you. They're angry if they don't like a comedian. They want him to never, they don't even want the comedian to carry on being successful. They don't want him to ever, they don't want him to play at the other side of the world. They just want him to stop doing comedy. Yeah.
Well, Ricky, thanks so much for chatting with us today about humanity and comedy and Emmys, and all the best with humanity.
And does everyone do all Emmy voters watch this?
I imagine so.
Tell them to vote. At least get me a nomination, because that'll be my 25th nomination.
Yeah. There you go.
They carry on the cool joke. Then nominate me. And then get me to LA, and then say, and the winner is Dave Chappelle.
There you go. So there you go, voters. It's in your hands. Do you want to do that, or do you
nominate Ricky, but make sure Dave Chappelle wins?